Welcome to the Living Consciously TV show. I'm your host and moderator, Coach Steve Toth, and we are coming to you live from our Denver, Colorado studios. Our theme today is, what if you had no fear and you could do absolutely anything? Let me introduce you to our guest and our Self-Growth cast members today. Our guest is Linda Dyer. She's joining us from Australia. Welcome to the show, Linda.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're glad to have you. And also, let me introduce Helen Carrison. Helen Carrison is our Self-Growth cast member, and she's joining us from Brussels, Belgium. Welcome to the show, Helen.
Thanks, Steve. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you here. Also, Ninan de Rosa. She's also our Self-Growth cast member, and she's joining us from the beautiful city of Las Vegas, Nevada. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. This is such an honor to be here with all of you.
Awesome. And last but not least, Jamie Lerner. She's also our Self-Growth cast member, and she's joining us from the beautiful city of Chicago. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic. So here's how the show is going to go. We're going to have 4 segments today. And the first segment is going to be really about what is the Living Consciously TV show is all about. And we just do a very short segment for the benefit of our first-time viewers. And our second segment, we will have a dialogue about what are the issues and problems with having no fear. And then our third segment, we will have another dialogue about what modalities and what different tools our cast members, our panel members have used in the past with themselves or for themselves and with their clients to help them conquer fear. And of course, our first segment will be, if we have any time, to entertain some call-ins from our viewers. And we're going to try something different today. We're going to open up the calls during the entire show and see how that goes. So when we get calls, just be prepared that we're going to switch to the incoming caller. All right, so our lead, let's start with the first segment, which is, what is really the Living Consciously TV show? Well, for my point of view, it's really about showing the general public what consciousness looks like and feels like. And this is certainly my belief that for hundreds, even thousands of years, I believe that humanity has been living under confusion, deception, manipulation, fear, and force. And I believe that we're in 2012 and it's time to shift. It's time to really have people see an alternative to what I just described. And what the alternative is really to come from our hearts and to come from love and to be able to connect to ourselves and to connect to each other. Does anybody on the cast has anything to add to what I just described?
Absolutely, I do. Go ahead, Helen. You go first.
Said it perfectly. That's exactly, that would be exactly how I'd say it too.
I think it's with the economy, I think we've become actually a little bit more conscious of who we are, our living conditions, our money arrangements. I think it's made us very conscious as of to our 24-hour day living, good or bad. But I think it's let us realize a little bit and be more conscious of what we actually are doing and how we do spend our days. Thank you,
Ninan. All right, if we don't have anything else, then we'll move right into the second segment. So my leading question to our guest is, fear is a vital response to physical and emotional danger. However, we often fear situations that are no way life and death in their nature and completely stops us cold for any good reason. Why is that, Linda?
Well, it's actually a response to protect us. And if we fear something, then we think that it may avoid that happening in our world. So we can go around it, or we can work out different ways of avoiding it in some way. And the problem being that it may be that it's really tiny in someone else's world, but massive in your world. So it's all around perception. Mm-hmm. What is the fear? What is the thing that I'm fearing?
Right. And in terms of how you work with clients and what you have learned, I'm sure you've coached many clients. And the common theme, obviously, for most people to move forward and to create an awesome possibility or possibilities for their lives is fear. Now, how do these fears get created? Is this something that we are accountable and responsible for ourselves?
Actually, no. As Joe Dispenza says in his book, Evolve Your Brain, when we were born, we're just no inhibitions. We're just the most beautiful, natural human being that we then are inflicted upon, if you will, by everybody else's stuff. And now some of that stuff's amazing. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. But there's also some fear that's injected into us that came from maybe many generations. The reason why it's so powerful is because it's given to us with passion. And passion's like concrete. So, for example, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. And the subconscious mind doesn't understand don't. So quite often a little child who said, you know, don't go and walk on the yellow lines, will go and find out, well, where are the yellow lines that I'm not about to walk on? Or don't climb that tree, you'll fall. Well, let's find out. Because the subconscious mind actually doesn't understand don't. So the kid is then deemed to be a misbehaviour when in fact they're just actually doing what they've been asked to do without the don't. So it's a way we are raised, especially in those first 7 years when our consciousness is not, we don't really have a consciousness. We have a subconscious, and we don't have the ability to say, well, why not? We haven't developed that yet. So everybody's giving us their stuff, and it's given to us every single day. You will eat like this, you will walk like this, you will think like this, you will believe this, you will... And then the next day comes, and the same thing. So it's embedded many, many times over, and with passion, with an emotion, because the subconscious mind is the emotional mind. So we take things emotionally, and of course one of those emotions is fear, and that then manifests itself in parts of our body. Every fear that we have, or every, emotion can represent itself in a part of our body, and fear represents itself in the bowel or in that area of the body. So as a person that's cured themselves of lupus, I'm very well aware of lupus or immune disorders emulating from the bowel, that fear of moving forward, that fear of I'm not good enough, that fear of I don't deserve that, or I can't do that, everybody else can but I can't. That it's like that lack of self-image. So I have a fear of progressing like other people do because I don't feel that I can do what they're doing.
Got it. Great.
That's huge.
I feel like also using one of my own examples, just for the benefit of the viewers, and maybe to check in with you, all of you, the cast and Linda. You know, what do you think and what do you hear in what I'm describing? So, I want to describe one of my greatest fears of my entire life, and that has to do with speaking, believe it or not. Wow. And when I was 12 years old, I was growing up in a communist country in Budapest, Hungary. And I figured out very close to right after 12 years old that I believed that the communist system was not the right system for me. And I didn't feel connected to it. I didn't feel that it was the truth. I didn't find anything to be truthful about it. And I began to rebel against communism. And how that looked like is that, you know, I talked to a lot of people, my family, my friends, and everybody agreed with me. And I began to take on putting my hands up in meetings and speaking up against communism. And guess what I experienced? I experienced that I was the only person that had their hand up. Nobody backed me up. Everybody stayed quiet. And it got to the point where I developed this incredible fear that, because I was also beaten up by the communists for speaking up, that I cannot speak up, because if I do, it will hurt and I will be physically hurt. So for a long time, I went on this journey of like 30 years of self-development, personal development, and learning about speaking. And the way I learned about it is I attracted to myself all kinds of jobs where speaking and public speaking was a requirement. And I went through hell to get to the place where I am today, that I can sit here and talk to the entire city of Denver and to the entire world and to you fluently, which I wasn't able to do. I mean, I remember the first time I had to speak in front of the public, I rehearsed my speech in my head, and when it came time for me to say something, I could not say one word.
Well, I think that's a great example of approaching a fear head-on, which is really admirable, because a lot of people do just the opposite. They spend their whole life avoiding what they're afraid of. So to your credit, I think that you really went about it in really an incredible way that allowed you then to go on and to do what you're so passionate about doing, which involves speaking all the time. So you're a wonderful example of endless possibility when you confront a fear head on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's amazing because I went through the same thing, Steve. I was so shy and I was petrified. And I did the same as you. I went into everything where I had to confront people and I had to be with people and I had to talk and I had to do this and sort of try to get this fear away from me. But I think that people, when you were talking about you were the only person that had your hand up when they were talking about communism, is the other people were they were in fear of putting their hand up. And you were fearless. So I admire you for that.
Extremely courageous, courageous. And for me, my fear came way back in childhood. And believe it or not, I had a fear of actually leaving home. You know, as a child, of staying away from home, of going to friends' houses and staying over, even going to relations' houses, and going to school. I cried every time I went to school, and this was up until probably I was 7, something like that. And I never really understood why until quite recently. And it was all to do with an experience of coming home one day and finding that somebody I loved was no longer there. And I was not expecting that. And I learned from that actually it was unsafe to leave home. It was unsafe to leave home because when I got back, there would be somebody I loved who was not there. Yeah. And when I understood that, so many things became clear. And it's ironic because I've spent most of my my life since I was 14 traveling and leaving home. So it was a profound experience to realize, to make that realization.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing that. So what is then really the cost of living with these fears, Linda?
Well, the cost is if we don't, and like you, I had the fear of public speaking, which I know is people just cannot believe because it's my profession. But it was so profound. And like you, when I was young, I was continually told I was cheeky. And one day it was said to me in such a way that I thought, well, I'm just not going to speak because I don't know when to speak. I don't know when to say something. And we actually had public speaking courses in our degrees and I refused to do it. They had to find me something to do so I could pass my degree. That's how scared I was. I even won an award at the university and I wouldn't go and get it because I knew I had to get on stage. So it was quite profound. But when one guy yelled at me one day and he said to me, "You're being selfish." And I said, "Me, the person that gives everything away?" He said, "Yeah, you're being selfish." He said, "That person over there wanted a photo with you and you decided that you didn't want to be in the photo. You didn't at any time think of what it was going to mean for him for you to be in the photo. It's like that person over there needs your information, but you're thinking, your ego says, I'm too fearful to go and give my information on stage, so all those people are going to miss out because I'm just focused on me." And I got that. Yeah. And that's when I decided to just learn my information. And when I really know my information, then I can't wait to go and share it with someone else. And that was my way of breaking through the fear. Without breaking through it, I had massive problems in my gut. And the gut area is where so if I have a coaching client, for example, I will ask them, where do you feel that emotion? And if they point to this area here or around here, a neck area, then I know it's got to do with anger. If they point to the chest area, then I know it's got to do with something around sadness or grief. Mm. You know how people go, oh, that's so sad. Mm. And if they point to the gut area, which most people do, then I know it's got something to do with fear. And they'll agree. They'll, even with their eyes closed, they'll be nodding their head that, yeah, oh, I feel it in my gut. My gut's churned. Yeah, feel the fear. My gut's churning. And so massive diseases can develop from that. All your immune disease, 97% of diseases stem from the bowel. So imagine if we've shoved an emotion into the bowel or into that area, and we just keep suppressing it with food or alcohol or drugs or whatever. We don't really attend to it. We don't really, because we're ignorant. I don't think we need to blame people. We're just ignorant. I didn't know. We're ignorant. And so for me, it was, how do I go and get that knowledge to remove that fear and clean up my act and at the end of the day, cure myself of a disease that people are dying from.
So how did you do it? How did you do that? What was your that we could tell the audience of how you really got over all that? Because it's something I think a lot of people would love to know.
I studied the body. I thought, you know what? I've always been fascinated in us. And when I left school, I wanted to go to university and learn more about us. So I wanted to get into nutrition. But I missed out by 2 marks because the Australian education system is very high standard. And a lot of people are in our universities and may not want to be there, but there's people like me that couldn't wait to get there and were not allowed. So we then go in later. We work for 4 years and study and do whatever we want to do. We can go in later, and I now have 2 degrees. However, and I believe that was meant to happen also. I wasn't ready to go to university when I left school. I was too young. I needed to grow up and go and earn some money and live. So everything's meant to happen. How I did it was I then got into the fitness industry. And so I started to really study us as a person. How do our muscles work? How does our heart work? How does everything work? And in the fitness industry, I came across aqua fitness, water fitness. And I was one of the people that helped bring aqua fitness into Australia. So I went to America. They loved us as instructors because we were so happy and colourful. And so we were bouncing around on the stages of America teaching people aqua fitness. While I was over there, they started to introduce courses in nutrition, hormonal health, all sorts of other things that pertain to women's health. And I found myself, when I wasn't teaching, running off to all these other courses where I could learn more about us. And I would come back and I put it into action. I made a decision. So there's a 4-step process. I decided I didn't want it anymore. That's got to be the key. The next key, so I actually went through the lupus clinic in the hospitals here when I came back from overseas, and I decided, I said to them, I won't be coming back. They were furious. I can still see that doctor yelling at me. And I thought, this isn't about you, it's about me. The next thing was I needed to act on that. So I went and bought the Julie Stafford Tastes of Life, all these books that talked about healthy eating, etc., etc. With that action came a belief. And this is what I believe isn't really quite put across the way it should be with The Secret, being one of the 58 people filmed for The Secret. We need to rotate these two. When we act, we start to believe we can do it. When we believe we can do it, we do more actions. When we do more actions, we start to believe more about the fact that we can do it. Then we act more. So I started to, the doctors are saying lie in the lounge, There's no future in that. I was getting up and walking. I was taking minerals. I found naturopaths. I found books that I could follow. I was going to lectures. I was educating myself on how I got sick so I could reverse it. Yeah? But the key here is expectation. I expected to get well. I got a photo of me playing representative tennis, and I put it all around the house, and every day I would look at this photo and say, what have you done today to get back to that? Have you taken your minerals? Have you been for your walk? Have you changed, the way you think, the attitude? Have you calmed down? Like people said, you need to meditate. And I went, what? Who's got time for that?
I love it. I love it.
My life
Fantastic.
was totally hyper. I was a typical ADHD child, you know. I could play tennis for the University of Oregon while I did 2 degrees in 2 years. Like, doesn't everybody? And by the way, I swam a mile in my lunch hour.
Well, I think it's amazing because I think you're absolutely right. When you turn around and it's like somebody says, "Oh, I can't do that," and they really can't do it. They've already manifested that in their body, and now they really can't do it. But I think some days we wake up and we really want to go for it, and some days we wake up and we feel sort of a little bit down, a little bit lousy. So it's a matter of how you feel, and you get, like you were saying, get yourself into gear and think what you want to do and where you want to go. And if you really want that and you really put it out there, I agree.
Yeah. So
But
Linda,
you know what? It's also... Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, hang on. Linda, I hear like 3 different things in what you just described. One of the things I hear is that what does it cost us is that in a way we are ripping ourselves off and ripping everybody else off in terms of the magnificent human being that we can be when we give into our fears. That's one thing I hear. The other thing I hear is that it's costing us our health in some way or another, because our body is designed, it's a magnificent machine, and it's designed to keep us in homeostasis, moment to moment. However, when we create this or these fears within ourselves, and a lot of them are emotional based, we end up affecting somehow or another, our major organs. And our body cannot compensate anymore. And we end up being sick. Is that accurate?
Yeah, because when we're born, we have what we call SOD levels, sodium oxide dismutase. But you know what? It runs out. And one of the biggest things is around adrenaline. And we just think we can do anything because we're living off adrenaline. Well, one day you're lying on the lounge and adrenaline's not needed and you don't feel so chirpy. Well, guess what? That's how your body really feels. And so the subconscious mind, one of the prime directives of the subconscious mind is it has a picture of you in perfect health.
That's right.
So if you are not in perfect health, then you are out of rapport with your subconscious mind, which is you're out of rapport with the universe. You're fighting the universe. 96% of you is subconscious. So consciously, if 4% is fighting, arguing all the time about why you can't do something. Well, you can't do that.
Yes, there's a lot.
You want that again?
Right on.
Animated, my dear.
And then the third thing I heard, Linda, is that in a way, our biggest fears are like the pill that we need to take.
Or not. I mean, my biggest fear was taking any pill. I refused. You see, I watched my mother become really unwell, and I just assumed, for me, it was the after effects of medicine. And this is going to, rub some people different ways. But for me, I wanted to go natural. I watched my son get really sick in the first year of his life, and he was given 12 bottles of antibiotics. So for me, I wanted to look at options, alternatives. And I've lived that way for most of my life, and that's what I did with the curing of the lupus. I looked at what's out there because I've always believed that the two hands of medicine can work together.
And they can.
And I actually worked with the doctor.
So I'm feeling right now that you perhaps misunderstood me, and I'm going to take responsibility for that. So what I really meant, I didn't mean a pill that you actually take. What I meant is that, using my own example earlier in the show, my biggest fear was the fear of public speaking. So I took the pill in terms of making my life about learning about how to speak publicly. That's what I meant about the pill.
Yeah, making change.
Yeah.
I think there's something in that often what happens is the thing that we are fearful about is actually what we're pushed to do. And with you know, both yours and Linda's case about public speaking, is that you were drawn to that, you were pushed to it as part of what you had to do. You had to face your fear. The same with me, leaving home and going out on my own is what I've done all my life from an early age. So it's almost like the fear itself is what we have to do.
And then there's some people that use the fear because it serves a purpose for them so that they can argue for their limitations for their entire life. So, yes. and it's important that those people get to choose. Hopefully they're conscious of that choice. But if that is working for them and they are choosing to stay in that fear in order to not move along, then that is also something that we must recognize in others and allow.
But isn't that then about a lot about awareness, Jamie? It's about being aware
yes.
of where you are and what space you're operating from.
Yes, and I think oftentimes it's more important to know than what you do with what you know. So it's more important for someone to understand that, in fact, they're choosing to live in that fear because it keeps them where they are. Mm-hmm. And that is as important, if not more so, than what they choose to do with that information. So, I think that asking the question and answering the question is very different than what you do with it, the answer. And I know we're not on to encouraging people with our modalities, but that's often what I tell people. At least understand where the fear is coming from and how it's serving you. And if it's serving you, then okay, you know.
Yeah, interesting. Well, simply for me, what you're describing is, you know, when we're experiencing someone who is living in fear and they don't want to do anything about it and they feel comfortable within that, to me that just means that it hasn't cost them enough.
Well, people have a very high tolerance, I have to say. You know, I don't underestimate people. I'm in awe of people, of how much they endure. We are quite amazing in what we allow ourselves to endure before we make a choice to shift into something that feels better. It is amazing.
Yeah, you're right, Jamie. I think some people feel very comfortable not knowing that in that fear place. They sometimes don't even recognize they're actually in that place because they're so used to it. So when you say they have a choice, they don't even know sometimes they do have a choice. Yeah. I'm not going to say to make their life better because as far as they're concerned, they're not in fear, they're fine. It's how we see them, it's how we perceive them and how we understand them, and we look at them and think, why are you so fearful? Why are you like that? Because sometimes they just don't know. And they're comfortable where they are. But I think you're right. If you're in that place and you're comfortable, if you want to change, change. But if not, be comfortable.
Well, and I think a lot of what we see in terms of people with dis-ease is exactly that manifesting itself. Mm-hmm. So that tends to get people's attention, some kind of dis-ease. So.
Oh, look, absolutely. When you look at the groups of people that have disease, they have societies now.
Yes.
And so they all come together. And so
exactly.
I find that I went to one meeting of the Lupus Association, and that's all I lasted because I didn't want to be around that level of awareness. Because in my mind, this was very temporary. Yeah. And I'm going to get through this. And I, in fact, offered my services to the association, but they turned me down.
Because you're too positive.
Because it was their identity that they were having, and you weren't interested in that as your identity. But that was their identity. You know,
well, that's why it's so important when you're working on yourself to put yourself in an environment that serves you, to put yourself in an environment of positivity and surround yourself with people who feel the same way, who have the same vibration, who are thinking the same thoughts. Because if you don't, then that's what you absorb. And so often that's part of the battle I think people have, in that they're in that environment which actually perpetuates the fear.
Exactly.
So making that shift and first of all being aware of it and being aware that that's what you need to do. That's the first step, because nothing can happen without that awareness.
Yeah. But some people don't know they have that choice of a first step. Sometimes they're so used to where that. When you're getting back to that pill thing, I have to give an example. You were talking about pills and people taking pills. I happened to be in a pharmacist the other day, and I was looking at all these pills and everything behind this pharmaceutical place. And I said, "Wow, you got a lot of pills here." And he said, "Oh, yes." He said, we feel, this is one chemist, as we call them, pharmacists. They fulfill 500 prescriptions every day. This is just one. And I was so shocked, and I said, what a sick world we live in. I mean, is this because people are fearless, or they think that the pill is the crutch?
Oh, look, absolutely. That there are options out there, and as you were talking, I was thinking about empowerment and disempowerment. That they become disempowered to the doctor. So the day I chose to change and said, you know what, I won't be coming back here. And they were very angry, but nothing was going to change my mind. I'm not taking that pill. I never took anything anyway that they gave me. And I think that's why I recovered, because I chose not to have something else change me, like a pill. Does that make sense?
Yes, because you weren't fearless. Because you weren't fearless.
Yeah, well, I think I was actually scared, but I'd made up my mind that, and the mind's very powerful. I'd made up my mind, and it was because my husband said, you were very unkind to the doctors today, and I said, you have no idea what it's like to be almost a representative tennis player, swimming a mile a day, doing 2 degrees, and then telling someone how sick you are. You've got no idea what that's like. And I heard my own words, and I went, yeah, he doesn't, and so I don't want this anymore. And that was the change. It was the best statement he could have made. And I can still see myself walking out of that hospital. The sun was shining on my face, and I said, okay, right, I've made the decision to leave that. Now what do I have to do? Act. And I went and got the books. I went and got a juicer. I went through 3 of them. I juiced so many things. I think people were getting scared coming to my house because they'd be juiced.
I love it.
All right, so this is really a good segue to go into our third segment, which is about tools and different modalities that all of you have used in your practices or for yourself to become fearless. So who would like to go first?
I'll go. I've used for myself personally various techniques, and they're all about connecting with me, who I really am, rather than the projection of me, the small me, the me that can't do this and is not good enough, and the me that everybody else is better than. And it's really it's been quite tough sometimes, but it has been a matter of using certain energy techniques, and I used EFT quite a lot. I've also used NLP with Linda. We've worked on this together. But these energy techniques to tap into the subconscious and to understand, to feel the fear, and then to release it, to let it go, to recognize it for what it is. So certainly EFT, emotional freedom techniques, I've used a lot, and I use with my clients too. It's extreme. I find it extremely fundamental to me now doing what I do and being in the space that I am. I think also, Jamie, I think you use similar techniques, or well, maybe it was Alicia.
I think it's Alicia.
Yeah, I think it's Alicia now on reflection. But certainly that's something that has worked for me and works with the clients that I work with.
I think, I was in acting and modeling and all that stuff, and this really is a test. I think we all know it, but you go in and you walk in the door and you are rejected. And when this happens 2 or 3 times, that you're rejected, you start to take it very personally, and you think, you're no good, but it's not that at all. And how I got over the fear of that was that I wasn't exactly what they were looking for within their eyes. It was nothing to do with me. So I had to get over that hurdle and how I got over it was that they accepted me for that job, and it was like, and it just made me feel so good. So it was like practice made perfect. It was like if I kept doing this, and I think we all know when we go for acting parts, they've got this figure in their mind of what they want and who they want, But you think that this is what you want, which is you. So you walk in there and then they reject you. So to get over that fear was rather hard. But then I thought, no, Ninon, do not take that personally. And so that's what I've done through my life. Don't take it personally. You are an individual, and you must not be fearless, but because you're going to make mistakes. But through those mistakes, you're going to accomplish it, and then you're going to do it, and you're going to lose the fear.
That's great.
Very interesting. So,
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll give the mic back to you in just a second. So what came up for me from that conversation, and thank you for sharing that, is that interestingly, what I'm finding, or what I found, is when I'm in touch with who I really am, and I gone on to, like, the way I dealt with my fear of speaking is I went on a 30-year journey in personal development and self-growth, and I have done everything that I could get my hands on, from tapes, from videos, from courses, from joining organizations, you name it. I've done a lot of it. Until one day that I have realized that, I have done enough study of this now. I'm really kind of a master of all this stuff. But what's
you could now teach it.
But what's interesting is I haven't really used it for myself yet.
That's right.
Oh,
That's right.
Yeah.
interesting.
I've just been studying all this stuff, and when is it going to be time for me to actually put it to work? And 8 years ago, it just dawned on me, this is the time.
Yeah. I have a great quote for that, Steve, and I do not remember who it comes from, but it's something like, to know and to not yet do is to not yet know.
That's great.
Yes, I guess you could say that.
Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Don't be afraid. Don't be fearful of us making mistakes. The only place in how we learn is when we make a mistake. I don't ever get any compliments when I do something right. I get, why did you do it that way? I sort of, so you get that fear thing in you. What did I do wrong? But we all make mistakes. Don't be fearless. If you don't try, you won't know.
Yeah, which is the same thing. Which is the same thing, Nina. What you said earlier is like, human beings are like meaning machines. Like, everything has to mean something, and I've kind of learned that. Hey, guess what? I just had an experience. What if it didn't mean anything?
Well, and that's a good point, because I have to say, it's important for us to understand vibrationally if our fear is our own or we've taken it on from someone else. And oftentimes, when something happens and it really doesn't necessarily mean anything to us, but we have taken on someone else's reaction or response vibrationally. And we carry a lot of that vibrational fear around with us that has nothing to do with us. So I'm always asking clients to kind of sort through, to become really curious about the fears that you have and try to see if in fact they're your own, because a lot of our fear has nothing to do with us. And if we can sift through it and sort through it, it's kind of like sorting socks where they all look the same, but they're not. Then we can determine which is our fear and where it comes from and what we want to do with it. And that's another, way to empower people, is to ask them what they want to do with the fear that they have determined is their own, even if they don't know where it has come from. But it gives them an option, instead of feeling paralyzed by it. Then they can turn it into empowering. Yeah.
To let go of the fears that they've taken on board that are not theirs as well. To consciously let go of those fears.
And I agree with that, because it's funny. My husband was suddenly, for so unknown reason, was suddenly flying to a big temper or something and start yelling at me. And I'd look at him like, what's going on? And I learned not to fight back at him. I would just look at him and say, okay, and I'd leave. And then I would come back to address, reasonably, because as you were saying, Jamie, I did not want to take on his anger. I wasn't angry. I had nothing going on. I was as happy could be. But I did not, and I think that's a great thing. If you can understand that somebody else, when they're angry, you don't have to shout back at them because you're not angry. So don't take on that. And that's when you become fearful, is to fight back. You've got to fight back. because that fear comes in. But if you can just kind of relax, as you said, Jamie, and not take that on, that has nothing to do with you. I think that's a great feeling.
And also a lot of our fear comes from media and mass consciousness. And so to turn on the television and watch CNN, I think that without even realizing it, we feel paralyzed and fearful. And to begin to understand that that is an option, to watch CNN or whatever we're watching, and to not allow ourselves to be affected by it, or if it's affecting us, to be able to turn it off and to put our attention somewhere else, so that we are not a victim in any way to that kind of fear-based, perpetuated propaganda. So,
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
All right, I feel like doing a reality check. Okay, what fears are you dealing with right now?
Oh. My fear at the moment is getting my house straightened out. I was trying to get this quart into a pint pot. I'm not really fearful of that, but no, it is. I must admit, I think I did have a little bit of a fear. I had just moved from Los Angeles after living there for 40 years and then coming to Vegas. I mean, it's like, putting an old woman into Vegas is really not the right thing to do because there's all these young people around. But then I quickly got over it all and turned around and said, I am me and I am what I do. And the move I just made as an older person was very dramatic. And I didn't realize how dramatic it was because I kind of did it all and was all excited and everything else. And when I relaxed, I thought, what on earth have I done? But then that was just a fear of a moment. That was just a fear because it's absolutely so beautiful here and so relaxed and so wonderful. I'm so happy. But there was that fearful moment in there. Just for a little while, but everything's fine now.
I think there's many different ways that we can assist people with their fear. And Jamie, I take on board what you were saying. In a process called matrix therapies, we actually get people to look at where they think their fear came from. And we actually have a process, I call it the chat script, where you can actually pretend that person, if it came from a person, is standing in front of you, and you can actually have a great conversation with that person and release,
that's
the fear.
Excellent. That's excellent.
Yeah, and I find that I've even done that on a plane with a guy, and he swallowed. And I said to him, wow, you are suppressing somebody. I know you don't know me, but you were suppressing somebody. Who was it? And he said it was my grandma. I said, well, honey, I'm normally $600 and right now I'm free. I said, if you want to clear that sucker,
good for you.
I'm right here. And it's 4:00 in the morning. We're not due in Sydney till 8, so we've got 4 hours. And anyway, he did it. And the air stewards kept coming down. They'd look at me and I'm going, get out of here. And he raced off that plane and went and spoke to Grandma. Now, he hadn't spoken to her for 20 years. So that had been building up in his system for all that time. In the end, I ended up coaching his wife, himself, his workplace. And all I did was offer an opportunity for someone to release something on a plane. Another way that we do it is we use anchoring. I've just been doing it with some people in London on a Skype call, where they anchor a whole bunch of really beautiful things that they would like to experience on one part of their body, and the knuckles are always a good one. And so when they have a moment in their day that isn't going as chirpy as they'd like, and they would like to be in that nice place, they can just press this, and this keeps them totally in control of their state. Nobody affects me then on without my consent. Can I just say that the thing that really changed me was this statement from Steve Bow, and it was in the Bob Proctor material, and he said, God's gift to you is more talent and ability than you can ever use in your lifetime. Your gift back is to use as much of that talent and ability as you can in your lifetime. And I went, what am I doing? I'm not giving the universe anything compared to what I could. And that changed my life. And from that moment on, my process is around language, which is, to be honest with you, very foreign, because I'm 97% for maths, 54% for English girl. Now I get the mathematical equation in English and I go, every time I want to do something now, I go, how can I make that happen? And that's the only language I know now. How can I make that happen? How can I get over lupus? Okay, great. How can I hitchhike across the Canadian Rockies at minus 35 to get to this place to finish my degree? Okay, I can do this. And so I did it. How can I dress up as a man because I've got a ticket that's going to get me to England and it's a man's ticket? How can I dress up as a man for $75 and go to England? So I did it.
And how did you get in when you got there?
Well, I convinced them this end that I was a man and a woman. I had my hair cut short. I did the whole thing. And I got on the plane, and it stayed there for 22 minutes longer than it should have. And I'm sure they were confused over his name and my name. And I got to England, and I'm walking in there, and I've got a guitar. I used to be a singer. I've got a guitar and a tennis racket because I was obviously a professional tennis player. And that went everywhere with me. I played for the university, and of course I was going to take it to England because from England I was doing a 6-month safari through Africa, as you do. And I'm walking in there, and the guy says, "You've got something to declare." And I said, "No." And he said, "Yes, you have, that racket and that." I thought, "Oh." I said, "They're mine. I brought them from Australia. They go everywhere with me." And at that time, he put down passport and ticket at the same time on the bench. And he's like this. It was killing me. I'm thinking about my dad and how I'm trying to find his family, which I was. And I'm thinking about, all these excuses I could make. And then I said to myself, what can he do? He can just send me back home and I'll pay him later. And so I relaxed.
Positive.
And I'm just about to go because I couldn't stand it anymore. I went, "Look." And he said, "Go through, madam."
Madam.
Madam.
Great, Linda. Hey, Linda,
And I found my dad's family and got all my brothers and sisters together when I came home. We bought them a ticket to England for that Christmas, and they went back and reunited with his family. He lost them in the war. It's a great story. And it's all about how can I make that happen? Yeah. You can do anything you want with that language.
Yeah, but you did. You did. You persuaded, you did, and you were positive because I agree. I don't live, and nobody negative in my life. I'm not interested. They're sweet, they're lovely, but goodbye. Only positive people that want to move forward and go forward. And I think that reflects on yourself and what you want and where you want to go because they've got the same attitude and the same feeling like yourself.
Yeah, Linda, I have an actual request of you, if you would agree. I think it would be really beneficial for our viewers if you would do one of those anchoring exercises, and maybe somebody on the cast could put their hand up to do it with you.
Sure.
I'll do
So
it.
the anchoring's really simple. You just think of 5. I'll give you some examples, but you think of up to 5 great things that you would like to have back in your world, like you've experienced previously, and you would like to have them back. For example, think of a time where you're totally happy. I'll just give you a whole list, and then you can pick out some out of that.
Well, just do it. Just do it with Helen.
Yeah.
Ask Helen.
Yeah, but I need to give her a list of some ideas. Okay. So some of the ideas might be, think of a time where you were really happy. Mm-hmm. And then you think, yeah, I can do that. Okay. Think of a time where I was totally excited. Uh-huh. Now, if I'm working with an AD client, an audio digital client, they're not totally anything. So I would say, think of a time where you were excited. And it means the same to them as me who gets totally pumped, yeah? Or, yeah, so I have to think about the person. And as I've worked with Helen, it's easy. Think of a time where you were pumped, really pumped, yeah? Think of a time where you were inspired to make something happen. Think of a time where you fell down laughing. I was telling the story this morning of working in a kids camp, and I've got 14 kids here and 14 kids here, and it's 13-14, and the winning team gets a chocolate each, which is huge stakes when you're a kid, right? So the kid gets up to bat, and he bats the ball, and it goes out into the park, and my dog picks it up. Now you've got 28 kids chasing a dog around the park because chocolate's at stake. Well, I fell down laughing. And I laughed, and I always go back to that, and I remember laughing so much that everyone got a chocolate, everyone won. I won, the kids won, and the dog won because he's got the ball. So, yeah, so you think of a time where you fell down laughing. Think of a time where you were totally in love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we've got enough?
Yep.
Okay, so one at a time. We just get you to, and if any of you have these times, then by all means do it. We just choose either the right hand or the left, and we choose one of the preceding knuckles, something that's going to be easy for you. Mm-hmm. And we use either the left finger to touch the right hand or the right finger to touch the left hand.
Okay.
So you can be out in the street, you can be in a bus, you can be under the desk at work, and you're not feeling totally chirpy or you're not focused, you can just press that knuckle. And all these things we anchor on it today will just come up. Yeah? Okay. So, Helen, what's one that really resonated with you, one of those ones that I said?
It was the one about feeling totally inspired.
Okay, great.
Totally inspired, yeah.
Now, you'll notice what I have to do is I have to replicate. So I have to be totally inspired, yeah? Otherwise, Jamie, that energy transferring doesn't happen. It's like I could say, okay, Helen, I want you to feel totally inspired.
Yeah,
so, okay, so everybody who wants to do this, everybody outside who wants to do this, get your knuckles ready. All right. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to go back in time and think of a time where you were totally inspired. See what you see, hear what you hear, and feel that feeling of when you were inspired. And when you're ready, anchor it on your knuckle. Press the knuckle. Now, we only want the peak of the experience, so when you feel like the energy in your body's coming down, you take your finger off.
Okay.
Right. Now, the beautiful part about working with Helen is she nods. That's so easy for me. It's like, I give you permission now to put my hand, I give you permission now to let you know that it's coming off. They love working with people like that because I've got, okay, she's off. Okay, great. So let's put something else on top of there. Jamie, Helen, what's another one that you'd like?
Feeling totally loved.
Okay, great. Why did I know that was coming up?
I don't know.
Think of time. I want you to go back in time. Think of a time where you were totally loved. See what you see, hear what you hear, and feel that feeling of being totally loved. And when you're ready, anchor it.
Okay.
Huh? Great. Okay, we're going to do one more because after 3 you test it. Okay, what's another one that you'd like?
It was the one about being in a place. I can't remember. It's the first one you mentioned, and I've just put down beach, so I know what it is, but it's an important one. I can't remember what.
So it was the first one I said was like really being happy or excited.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, being happy and
Both?
excited.
Being happy and excited. Great.
Being
Good.
happy more. Yeah,
being
but
happy.
both. Yeah.
You totally happy or just happy?
Oh, totally happy.
Okay, great. Okay, so
Absolutely.
just close your eyes. I want you to go back in time and think of a time where you were totally happy. See what you see, hear what you hear, and feel that feeling of being totally happy. And when you're ready, anchor it. Totally happy. Blissfully happy. Great. Okay. Now, because we've done 3, you now test it. So test your knuckle and see what comes up.
It feels hot, actually.
Oh.
It feels hot. good. Yeah.
Now, for some people, that could be enough. 3 could be more than enough. For those that didn't find it enough, then you would keep topping that up. So let's say you...
Okay, Linda, I'm sorry to cut you off, but we are actually running out of time.
Oh.
Thank you very much, both of you. This was very powerful. Unfortunately, we are on a live show, and we will be cut off, cold. So thank you very much. This was very powerful to both of you, Helen and also Linda.
Thank you.
And many thanks to all of our viewers, our guests, our cast, and our crew. Don't forget to vote on our show once it's put up on our website. And the more you vote, the more our shows are actually played. So it will be on channel 56, 57, and 219. Also, join our free member site at livingconsciously.tv and interact with all of our cast and with myself there. So thank you very much. I love you all, and I will see you next Saturday, same time, same place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Linda. Thank you. Take care, guys.